everybody see this screen that I'm out of the way? So I guess I'll start with an introduction. My name is Keisha Jackson. I do live in Alabaster, Alabama, but I am originally from Ohio. So whoever you cheer for in football, I apologize. I will die a Buckeye fan, so don't hate me for that. I have been a social worker since 2011 officially. Before that, I still did casework for a Head Start program. Before that, I lived with a grandmother who made us take care of everybody in the world. So I tell people I think I've been a social worker my entire life. My passion is children. So when I wrote this book, initially it was just something to do as cathartic, and then it moved on from there. Without me going into too much more, I just want to be able to present some stuff about the book today. So the name of the book, like I said, is called Trash. It's called Understanding the Foster Care Journey and How You Can Help. Why trash? Okay, so I came up with the title Trash for a couple of reasons. It really was a play on words. I was trying to bring focus to some stuff that was concerning to me that was going on with foster kids. In my current role, I don't work for DHR. I actually work for the guardian ad litem that represent these children at court. So I get to tell people all the time, I get to do true foster care because I don't have to deal with the case management side. So when I go out to see kids, it really is just to see how they're doing. It really is just to make sure that everybody is doing what they need to do. And in having those tough conversations with kids and hearing so many kids tell me, you know, nobody cares, I'm worthless, it doesn't matter. So when I started thinking about this book, I wanted to focus on those things. And I also wanted to focus on the fact that you as foster parents, adoptive parents, if you've been in the system at all, the practice is still moving kids with their belongings in trash bags. And there is an association with that. You know, we have kids going from their home to foster homes, to other foster homes, maybe back to home, possibly to an adoptive home. And every time we're moving them, a lot of times they're being moved with their belongings in trash bags. So we're talking about the socio-emotional health of children in foster care as well with this book. And I'll go back real quick. I wasn't nervous till they told me they were going to live stream this, you guys. So if I'm talking too fast and you can't hear me, please stop me. Okay. This is actually here. This is actually one of the pages out of the book. So this is our character Trash. And this is one of the things we talk about. When I did work at DHR, removal was the hardest part for me. Because how do you explain to a child that no matter what's going on in your home, we're going to take you from that family and we're going to make you be okay? You know, if a child grows up and thrives in that situation or does thrive in the situation, that's the only thing they know. So to just move them and not have the conversation with them, that was really hard for me because there were times when I couldn't sit down to explain to the child, you have to leave your home right now. And you couldn't have that conversation. And it always bothered me because I've always felt like kids understand more than we give them credit for. And sometimes we don't want to have the hard conversations with kids because we don't want to deal with it ourselves. So in this scene, it says, Miss Mover gave me a big hug. She gave me a big black trash bag, and she told me to pack up my things. So there's some foster care facts I wanted to talk about. So this is a couple years old, but in 2020, nationwide, there were 213,964 children in foster care under the age of 18. I work out of Jefferson County. There's anywhere between 1,000 and 2,000 kids just in Jefferson County at any given time. And that's from little bitty babies through 21-year-old kids. I say 21-year-old kids, some people call them adults, but I have a 20-year-old and a 23-year-old, and trust me, if y'all have those ages, you already know, they're still kids. They're not ready to be on their own a lot of times. Across the country, children in foster care often have to transfer their clothing and their personal items in bags. So the second quote here I got from a study that they did, and if you look online, I'll post this on Instagram so that you guys can actually have this to look at, so that you can look at the links that these stories come from, because I found this really interesting. So Daniels was an actual person that they did a study on, and it talks about how they were always moving his stuff in trash bags and how it made him feel. So why I like this quote, it said, the impact of this seemingly small indignity can be profound. It can exacerbate or confirm in a child's mind feelings of instability, powerlessness, and even worthlessness. And I agree with that so much. One of the things that in writing the book that I dealt with the little girl that was very young that tried to commit suicide. And in talking to her and saying, honey, why did you do this? She was like, nobody wants me. My family doesn't want me. foster parents don't want to keep me. My DHR worker doesn't like me. Why not? You know, and she was 11. So here 11-year-old basically saying my life is worthless. It's something we need to work on. We need to work on how we are letting these kids know how they feel about themselves. So down at the bottom it says, trash was not any one child that I have worked with. Instead, she was a visual image of the hundreds of children I have met over the last decade. I can't recount the number of times a child has told me they feel worthless, unloved, and even thrown away. Those are all actual statements I have heard from more than one kid. Nobody cares, I'm worthless, nobody wants me. And then we put their stuff in trash bags and we move them. So to me, a trash bag is for trash. So, and kids know this. They know that they put trash, some of them, hey, even your own kids know, we take our trash out in a trash bag. So what are we saying to kids when we put their belongings into a trash bag and then move them? And if this kid has any kind of, you know, issues with self-esteem, it just builds on them. So these are just some things I found online. So there's an awareness about the situation, but it's what's actually being done about it. Trash bag is not a suitcase. You know, think about what we do put in a trash bag. Would you want to move your things in trash bags? How would it make you feel if somebody said, take all of your belongings, put them in this big trash bag, even though it came out the kitchen where the rest of the trash bags are, put all the stuff that you own in it, and let's go. We need to start thinking about those things with our children, especially when they're in foster care. Okay, so that's my spiel. Now we're going to talk about some real stuff. And I would love some communication back with this. So one of the things that I want foster parents to start thinking about is how is our self-worth combined to what our belongings? Think about the stuff that you own. Think about that favorite purse. Think about that car, that dream muscle car that you put hundreds of thousands of dollars in. It has the big tires and the big radio and the nice paint job or the wraparound job. Think about how important those things are to you. Think about a watch you may have gotten from your grandfather. Think about a card that maybe you got from a best friend that you knew in school. Think about all the things in your life that have worth and meaning to you. Now think about if somebody came and took them. Or if somebody came and took you away from those things. How would you feel? If somebody just walked in your house one day, grabbed all the stuff that you hold precious, threw it in a trash bag and said, let's go. Because that's what's happening to a lot of our kids in foster care. Anybody want to comment on that? Open for questions. Anybody ever thought about it like that?
Not really. You don't think about it in the moment.
And that's part of the problem is that we don't think about it, and that's another reason for this book. Let's talk about loss and family of origin. If I say family of origin, does everybody in here know what I mean by that? Yeah? So if you don't, family of origin is a social work term where we talk about that's their biological family, is another way to say it. I've heard it said, I probably at some point have said it, but we sit and we go, why would this kid want to go back to these parents? They're not good people, they're horrible people, they're just the worst people in the world. I can't understand that loss. And so sometimes in our conversation, we don't think about those things, and sometimes as foster parents, as social workers, we get frustrated with kids, especially kids that are old enough to know that they've been removed. We get frustrated with them because we're like, why are you so attached? They were awful to you. You know, I've had foster parents that I've had to go in and correct and say, you can't say that to a kid. You know, I've had foster parents that I have to tell them, you have to be very careful when you have opinionated conversations about children's families because they can hear you. And you don't understand that effect. It's like, again, if that's all they know, if it's all you know, you don't know that there's something better out there. You want what you're familiar with. And anybody has that same feeling. Anybody has that same sentiment. A big part of the book is dealing with grief and loss. In the book, Trash, the main character in the book, she has a doll that she goes into foster care with that she got from her grandmother. And she takes this doll from placement to placement to placement until it gets taken from her. Once the doll gets taken from her, she begins to have acting out situations. She begins to start feeling some kind of way, and she gets moved because she's acting out because of the loss she experienced. So one of the things that we don't talk about with our kids is grief and loss. So what happens with these kids are they're experiencing loss after loss after loss after loss after loss. And if you know anything about grief, the stage of the grief, the very first stage of grief is anger. So then we have a kid and they're mad and they're acting out and they may hit, and they may cuss, they may break things, they may hide food, they may steal, and we think it's, oh, this kid's just being bad, but we're not addressing trauma in foster care like we need to. We're not addressing grief and loss in foster care like we need to. We're not addressing the social needs of these kids like we need to. And so that leads to a lot of the behavior problems that we have with these kids in foster care. So a question, what does loss look like to a child? Anyone want to be brave and answer? Take a guess. Yes.
I think a lot of times it's like their world turned upside down, right? Because like to me, if I know what it is, I can think through the question and yes and no to go like, I have like a wood shop in the backyard, right? Like I have invested a lot in a lot of tools back there, right? If all those got taken from me, I could at least process it. But my little 2-year-old can't process that. She just knows this was my life. I had my toys and I had my plates and I had my favorite seat, and now it's gone. Like her world is now gone. She doesn't know what's safe and what's not safe and where her security is, because it's just everything she knows is gone. She doesn't have the capacity yet to comprehend it. It's just gone.
Yeah, and it's not even, in the capacity is one thing, but at 2, 3, 4, 5, they also don't have the verbal skills yet. They don't know the words. When I did do mental health with children, my first job working with children, a lot of times those were kids that had behavior issues. So one of the things that I had to do was work with them. Not ready for that one yet. Work with them to teach them their words. So if you're hitting and you're angry, let me teach you how to say I'm angry. If I had a nonverbal child, I might use picture cues and so that they could point at I'm angry. So some of the things that you guys can do as foster parents, if you see a child that is young or delayed in their social skills, delayed in their communication, try to find some different ways to get them to be able to use their words versus having a negative action. Because if they get even a positive or a negative response for a negative action, it's some kind of communication for them. It's some kind of way for them to feel like you see me. Whether I do a good thing or a bad thing, you at least see me. You know there's something going on with me. And you're right, it's those losses. One of the other things I do is I teach interns at my current job. And so one of the first things I have them do is watch a video on YouTube called Removed. And then I give them a piece of paper and I say, now I want you to count everything she lost. And most of the time they look at me and go, huh? What? I was like, I want you to count everything she lost. And so of course they'll do, well, they lost her mom, she lost her dad, yeah, what else? Well, she lost her little brother. Okay, well that's all obvious. What else did she lose? And then they kind of go, I'm like, well, she's school age. What about the school that she went to? She probably had a teacher there. Teacher probably liked her a lot. A lot of kids that have troubles at home gravitate towards school. I know I was one of the ones that, because of stuff going on in my home life, my school was my escape. I liked that when I went to school, it was a peace and the teachers liked me and I could just be smart Keisha and nothing else had to matter. So we have these kids, they lose their school. And it was at school, well, they're friends. So when we move them out of school district, they lose their friends. So what if there's a dog at the house? And you know, mom and dad might have issues, but that dog is their security blanket. You can't take the dog to foster care, so then they've lost the pet. What if, again, a favorite animal, a favorite clothing item that gets left behind? The pictures, their books, their videos. These kids go through so much loss and an initial removal that's not addressed, that those are the things that we need to start thinking of. Because those losses add up. And that's where the grieving comes in. That's where the anger comes in. That's where the behavior issues come in. And those are the things that if we start focusing more on that and less on the behaviors and say, okay, let's fix this, we can really begin to help some of these foster kids work through these. And you will find kids that will be able to get a balance. And I'm not telling you something, I'm guessing this is stuff that I've had to do with kids before. You know, I've had to be the person that goes back into the family of origins house and say, hey, listen, Joe really, really, really wants that baseball glove that he got from his grandpa Joe. And I know you hate me and I'm the worst person in the world right now, but please, so that your son can sleep tonight, can I get this baseball glove? And just take it to him so he has it while we figure everything else out. So giving kids a platform in an area to be able to discuss those things is one of the other reasons that I wrote this book. All the books are actually teaching tools, and we'll talk about that in a minute, because I want you guys to be able to use them. So how can we help our kids? So first thing is we need to support our children by acknowledging their feelings and their loss. You know, it's okay when this kid gets angry to say, I know you're angry, but tell me why you're angry. And again, that's a place where you can use things like they have little sheets of paper that have all the emotions on them. And if your kid can't verbalize that, and it's like, are you mad like this? Are you sad? Because sometimes you'll think the kid is angry and they're actually sad. Sometimes they're sad and you'll think they're angry. So having that conversation and acknowledging those feelings directly after an incident happens, if you have a trigger, we're going to talk about that in a minute, the no-go triggers with some of these kids, acknowledge those things. Let them know that you see, yeah, this isn't perfect. I know I'm not your parent, but I'm going to love you and I'm going to take care of you. I know you miss your mom. I know you miss your dad. I know you miss your family. I know you miss your dog. And I apologize, but these are the things that we can do. Let me help you work through it versus instantly going to the negative, because that's a struggle for a lot of foster parents I have that have kids that are older kids. Not necessarily talking about the younger ones, the infants, but those older kids that come in that know that family, those losses are real, and they feel them just like if you cut off a finger. They know that they're there. They know something is missing from their life. They don't know what it is, but they don't know how to tell you what it is, but they know that there's something missing. So another thing that you can do is kind of what you're doing today. Actively participate in trainings to learn ways to help troubled children. There's so much stuff available now. There's online videos, there's TED Talks. You guys have to get CLEs.
Or see.
CUs, CLEs. Participate in the ones that actively focus on things dealing with child welfare, child grief, child loss, especially if you have the heart to deal with the older kids that really need that connection and that function and really need people to understand what they're going through. Can everybody hear me? No? Not at all? Can you hear me now? Okay. So, yeah, if you can't hear me, just wait. Help your children hang on to personal belongings they come into your home with. Okay, Keisha, what are you talking about? So say you get a kid that comes in, they're dragging that trash bag, but within that trash bag, they let you know that there's a couple pictures in there that they want to keep a hold of. Or you have an older teen and maybe they have a journal. We had one girl that she had been journaling for years and had a stack of journals. And she got moved and all of the journals got left at the foster parent's house and the foster parent vindictively threw them all away. And this was years of journals. So if your kids come into care with things, even if they grow out of little things, if you know they're comfortable for it, set up a little care box, a little shoe box. Get go to the dollar store and get a photo album, put those pictures in an album and put them by the bed. Give them some kind of physical way to hold on to those parts of their childhood because that's part of their identity. That's part of who they are. They've had things called journey books. I don't know if you guys have heard of those. They're really neat. You should check them online if you haven't heard of them. But it helps the kids kind of process from removal through where they're at. There's the pictures. You can communicate, hey, this is the day you came to me. This is what we did this day. This is when you had a visitation. And give them that physical thing to hold on to so that they have that connection. Okay, this is a good one. Learn a child's no-go triggers and respect them. Everybody in here got some biological kids too, or just been adopting for a while? Okay, so let's talk about no-go triggers. I have a son in the middle. He's gonna kill me because this is live stream. His name is MJ. Me and MJ are so much alike for the most part. We are either the best of friends or the worst of enemies. And it's been like that since he was this big. But over the years, I have learned the things to not do to set him off. And he's also learned the things to not say to set me off. Because when we fight, because you'll fight, especially now he's 20, we have those triggers, but we've learned, and we also had a trick that if we felt like either one of us is getting to the point where our disagreement was going to get out of hand, he could say, Mama, I think we need to take a flight. In our words, take a flight meant he's going to go in one room, and he's going to calm down, and I'm going to go in another room, and I'm going to calm down. And once we're both calmed down, we'll come back to the table, and we'll discuss what's going on. And with him having ADHD and being so hyper, a lot of times, me being the parent, there's just times you want to say, I just need you to do it. I don't want to communicate with you. But he's my kid to say, well, why do you want me to do it? What's really going on? So no-go triggers for kids, especially kids in foster care. If you know or you notice that when there's a certain movie on or a certain TV show on or sometimes a certain color or if, you may find out they don't want to talk to you about their visits with their parents. So if you notice after the first time that you try to bring up a visitation with their parents, they kind of shoot you down or there's a negative behavior behind it, say, versus me bringing this up, I'm going to wait for him to come to me. Start paying attention to those things so that you can cause less grief in your house, so you can have better conversations with the kids and allow them to say, you know, I know this is a good spot for you, but I'm here if you want to talk. So if you start seeing those things with the kids, give them the opportunity to kind of decompress, especially after visits. A lot of times I've had foster parents in the past that as soon as a kid walks in the door from the visit, it's who was there, what was your mama doing, how many people were, what color shirt did she have on, did she touch your hair, did she not touch your hair? And that kid just went from maybe school to a 2-hour visit with their mom. They get 2 a month, and then they come home and they get the second degree, and they're not ready. They need a break. So make sure you're giving them that time, and just really start understanding the cues that are going on in the house. Another thing is, and this is a big one for foster parents, and I used to always tell foster parents, until the ink is dry on a TPR and it passed all the state stuff in Alabama of going through the final process to the adoption, keep a piece of your heart secure. If you adopt older kids that know their family of origin, keep a piece of your heart secure. Understand that it is not that they love you and they don't love you rather when you get angry, but rather they might be having mixed feelings, and give them time to process that. So don't be so easily offended if when you're giving that love out, they're not necessarily giving it right back. They may not know how. I've had kids before that never had a hug. I've had kids before that have never been told you're amazing. You know, I've had kids before that thought their names were curse words because that's all they knew. You know, so, or they had a nickname in which is kindergarten and didn't know that their biological name was Reginald because they've been called Riri for 12 years. So give them time to come into your home, acclimate to what you have going on, and know that you're going to be there for them. Because a lot of our kids, especially kids that get moved a lot, they put up a wall. And that wall is very, very hard to get on the other side of. But I tell foster parents all the time, if you can wait for that wall to come down, there is an amazing kid on the other side of that wall that just wants somebody to love them. But what happens is you get moved, and you get moved, and you get moved. You do one little thing, you get moved. You say one little thing, you get moved. And what I tell foster parents is, think about it. With your biological kids, can you move them every time they do the first bad thing? When that teenager goes off on you, can you just give up on them? No. Why? Because, well, they're my child. Treat these children as much like your own as you're feeling to do. And the more that you can treat them and think of them and respect them as your kids, the better off your relationship with them is going to be. But if they feel like at any given time, the first time I mess up, you're giving up on me, that's how they're going to act in your home. You know, I tell kids all the time, I'm not your foster parent, but I'm in here hanging in with you as much as I can. There's nothing you can do that's going to make me hate you. There's nothing that you can do that's going to make me, I'm going to love you whether you love me, and there's nothing you can do about it. And then show them in little ways. And then give them the space to learn that, okay, this is a safe environment. Because if they've never been in that environment, they don't know what it looks like. You know, you may sit down to a family dinner around the table every Sunday or every single day. The rule is phones go in the basket, we're sitting at this table, we're having a conversation, and that kid's looking at you like, we eat on the floor in the living room while we watch whatever on the TV, or we don't eat together ever. So understand that all those things coming in are new to them, and they may not get it right away. You may have to give them some time to understand what's going on and appreciate that and understand that that's something that's social and emotional for them. So this slide here, this is actually in the book. I'm going to step over here for a minute. So in the back of all the books that I'm doing, there's a section that I'm actually putting in just for therapists. Because one of the things that I did when I did child therapy was I wanted books to help kids have a visual. And there weren't books specifically based on the things that I wanted to cover with kids. So the great thing about, the thing that I love the most about the books is actually the ending. Because at the end of all the books, it's actually a question and answer section. That looks like this. So on one side, you have conversation starters for your kids. And on the other side are these conversation starters right here for you. Because when you read the book to your kid, it's an easy read in as much as grammatically it's an easy read. But the subject content is reality. It's what happens in foster care. So these are the questions. How can you support a child who recently came into foster care? Anyone? What's something you can do for a new child in foster care? Or something that you use or practice in your home for a child that just comes into your home?
Being present, giving them their space, but being there at the same time.
Okay. Anybody else?
Try to feed them something that's probably something that they're familiar with.
Okay, so familiar food, giving them their space. Anybody else?
A schedule or something, what to expect.
Okay, kind of break down the rules of the house and what to expect and what's going on. Okay. Anyone else? No? Okay. So the next one's going to be identify 3 ways you can help a child in foster care express their anger in a healthy way. So the question in this book is that the child at one point actually acts out in anger, which triggers a removal. So a lot of times foster parents are like, they're always just so angry. How can I do this and how can I do this? So let's think of some things. What are some ways that you can help a child express their anger in a safe way? Or what are some things that you do in your home to help your children express their anger in a safe way? Yes, ma'am.
Our little 2-year-old, she hits when she gets angry, and so we talk a lot about like, mom is not for hitting, let's go get your things, and we have like one of those like shaped ones with a hammer.
Okay.
And so then she can like hit that and flip it over and hit it, or like a pillow that she can like hit. And I'm like, oh, can you stomp on it? Can you kick it? And then that helps her a lot to like be able to still do those things, but in a healthier way than hitting me.
I love that. Yes, sir.
Well, we have an 11-year-old adopted son, but when he was much younger, a swing set in the backyard became a wonderful outlet. When we saw, you know, the emotions and anger kind of building up, he learned and accepted. He would go outside and swing and swing and swing, and just as hard as it can be, he was back in a different child. I was not at the time, it really was, it still is helpful. Just to kind of let out whatever's going on.
I like that one. Yeah, physical activity is actually a really good outlet for anger. Does anybody else have any other examples?
I think with a couple instances we had of just staying calm and letting them, giving them that space to kind of, as long as they're safe, not, you know,
Yeah.
to let them.
Well, one of the things I used to do when I worked in mental health is I would tell parents, you know, don't acknowledge the temper tantrum. It's 9 times out of 10, it's a cry for help, and it's a cry for attention, more than even the cry for help. So if you don't acknowledge the temper tantrum, I like what he said. If they're in a safe space, if you got to move a chair out of the way a little bit, move the table they can't hit their head on a little bit, and walk away from it and say, you know what, I'm going to let you have your moment, and when you're ready to talk, we'll come back. And then you walk away. Because if you feed into the temper tantrum, it's going to last longer. It may become more violent. And then they're like, oh, I know how to get their attention. I can do this. So if you take that, almost like if you take the fire out of the flame and give them time to go through it, is a really good way to do it. But yeah, physical activity for anger things is an amazing thing. Communication, teaching them their words. I can't express that enough. A lot of these kids don't know how to tell you how they feel. They've never been taught that. Some of them are too young. Some of them have intellectual issues. And some of them, when somebody got angry in their house, there was violence. So in their mind, they attach, I'm angry, I hit, I cuss, I kick, I bite, I spit, I chew, because that's what I've seen in my house. So you have to explain to them, this is not how it goes. Use your words. And then you give them multiple words. Sometimes I'm angry, I'm mad. You can teach them, like I said with my son, when he would get angry, I need to take a flight. I need to walk away for a minute, regather my thoughts, and then I'm going to come back. Because I have a hot head too, it worked for both of us. So it's like, I need to walk away from this. I'm your mama. I'm going to go in the other room. I'll be back. So finding ways that work in your home to allow a child to help to express their anger in a healthy way is very important. Identify 3 nonverbal cues that will let you know that a child is scared or sad. What are some things that you can look at a child and know just automatically they're scared or they're sad? What are some nonverbal things that a child might do?
Body tensing up.
Body tensing up is a big one. Especially if there's physical abuse, you'll have a kid where you just go by them this way and they flinch. It's an instant reaction to something that they've been through in their childhood. And that's time for you. When you see that, you step back and you give them that space and say, you know, you can even say, you know, I'm not going to hit you. I'm going to go sit over here, and when you're ready to talk, we can talk. What's another one besides just the body clenching up?
I got one that hides under a blanket.
Mm-hmm. They may hide under a blanket. They may go in a closet. They may walk off, and you gotta go find them. They may hide under a bed. I had one that hid under a bed one time, and the foster parent called me in a panic, and the whole time he was under the bed, and he was so tiny, he had screwed it up to the very top of the bed and put a pillow over him, and you just couldn't see him. And she thought he had walked out the front door. So yeah, hiding, scrunching up. What are some other nonverbal cues that you may see? Yes, sir.
When if you flip it over, when a child is not scared, more likely to make eye contact with you and show that they're thinking. So when they are scared or sad, a lot of times they just simply don't want to look at you because maybe it reminds them of something.
Yeah. They'll shut down. You'll lose eye contact. All those are great. So start paying attention to those cues, and it'll kind of help you too, because you kind of know what kind of mood that kid is any given day. You say, okay, he's kind of off to himself today. He's not really wanting to talk to me. Maybe he needs some space. Let me back up. Let me, and it's one of those things where you can say, I'm here if you want to talk, and then walk away. And then leave the door open and let them come to you versus, pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. Give them that opportunity and give them that space. So the next is children displaying grief and loss differently. Children display grief and loss differently than adults. Identify 3 losses in the story that Miosha experienced. So I'm going to have to go ahead and give you a tip on the book. So Trash's real name is not Trash. Trash is how she identifies herself. By the end of the book, she actually uses her real name, and her real name is Miosha. So she experiences some losses. This one you may not necessarily know because you haven't read the book, but once you read the book, you'll be able to pull those out. But it'll give you a way to do it. This is my favorite question because this is one of the things that we ask adults to go, I didn't think about that. It says, think of a time when you felt less than your best. How did you verbalize what you felt? How can your own experience help you better identify what a young child in foster care may be feeling? So one of the things that I would do with parents, when I work with parents or when I work with foster parents, I would say, you're very frustrated with this child right now because they messed up. Have you ever messed up? And then they kind of go, well, yeah. I'm like, well, when you messed up, did your whole world get to come in? Did everybody just bash you forever and make you feel like the worst person in the world? Did they talk to you? How did you feel when you messed up? And, they started having to go, wow, yeah, think about it. So think about if you messed up one good time and maybe your parents just said, I'm done with you. I'm going to talk to you right now. Or you said, how can, and this part here, it says, how can your own experience help you? So how can some of the things that you went through, maybe as a child, or how you deal with anger, how can you use that to help a foster child or understand their situation more? And those are very interesting questions to ask. So the last slide here is not necessarily for you guys, but I will share it anyway. And it says, one of the simplest ways you can serve the hurting children in your local community is by actively supporting the foster parents working so hard to care for them. So this is kind of a kudos to you guys, because everybody in this room is either a foster parent or an adoption parent. Please give yourselves a hand. I appreciate you if nobody else does, because I know what you do. I couldn't do it. I will support you. I will bring you every kind of cook thing, old shoes. I just know personally I can't do it because I can't do them back. So it is not for me to do. So one of the reasons I have this slide is because I don't always talk to just foster parents. Sometimes I talk to people that want to be foster parents. Sometimes I talk to people that just want to see other ways they can help. So my kind of slogan is, if you cannot be a foster parent, support a foster parent. Make a meal. I love this meal idea. I think this is amazing. Make a meal. Offer to wash a load of laundry. Offer to babysit. That's what I tell people. Offer to babysit. You know what? Y'all have not been out in 6 months. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to take your whole tribe to the movies. You guys go get a break. Those are the things that our foster parents need. They need that support from the community. They need that support from our churches. They need that support from the state and all the organizations that are trying to help them, because you guys are out here doing what a whole lot of people will not do. So I definitely want you guys to get kudos for yourselves. I think you're amazing. I love foster parents. I love adoptive parents, because that means that there's a kid that has found permanency and they have peace. So that's really my whole presentation. I will tell you, this is the first book of 6. Again, the reason I started the books is because I wanted them to be available for therapy, but I wanted them to be able to start answering the hard questions that make us hard for us to talk to kids. So the second book is actually in publication right now, waiting to go to the illustrator. It's called Fish Don't Climb Trees. That little boy I told you about that I raised, he's one of 3. My oldest son is dyslexic, my middle son has ADHD, my daughter has both. They also have extremely high IQ. So I'm the parent that spends a lot of time at the school hearing. They don't apply themselves, they're lazy, they're not focused, they're not paying attention. I'm going, but they're really, and they'll go, but they're really smart kids, and if they would just do this, then that would be great. And hearing that as a young parent coming up, it became so frustrating. So when I was actually in grad school, I did a lot of research on what they call twice exceptional children. So start thinking of your twice exceptional kid versus this kid that won't pay attention and they got ADHD and they're really smart and they'll apply themselves. Start saying, my kid is twice exceptional. And then find the ways to nurture that kid. So the cool thing about this book is it's actually based on the relationship of my son and his grandfather and ways that my grandfather used non-medicated ways to help him. I'm not against medication, but I just believe if you're going to do medication, do therapy, do behavior therapy, help that kid, because the medicine just slows them down. It doesn't solve the problem. So teach them ways to become a better person. Teach them how to handle their anger. Teach them how to slow down and think. So my grandfather's trick is he would just look at my son and go, MJ. I had no idea what this meant. I just know he would make my son would be in mid-stride and he would stop. And I went, teach me. Because I couldn't do that. So it's really based on that relationship. The third book is actually called Raising My Grandparents. It's about kinship care. It's also close to my heart. My grandparents raised me. So that book's taken a little bit longer. I thought it was going to be my second book, but I haven't quite figured out how to end it. So it's just sitting on my laptop waiting for an ending. But it's about a little girl's relationship with her grandparents and how she feels like she's raising them because she's teaching them how to take care of her and not realizing and doing it that it's really them caring for her. Then there'll be 3 more books after that. There'll be a book on grief, there'll be a book on anger management, and then there'll be a book into this foster care book where it'll be a removal book with a reunification story. And then they'll be able to be set up as a box set so that they can go into facilities like this for training, into therapeutic settings for training, and of course always purchase for anywhere else. But that's my spiel. If you don't hear it from anybody else this year, I appreciate what you guys do. Keep doing it. Keep loving on these children. That's what they need. Find ways to support them. Know that I'm collecting suitcases whenever I do non-foster care related ones. Related teams, I always collect bags. I'm actually getting ready to send a bunch of bags to Tuscaloosa because we don't need to have our kids out here feeling like less than human, less than like nobody cares about them. We need to send these kids out and prepare them just like they are our own. So I just want to thank you guys again for everything that you're doing. I want to thank you for letting me be here. I hope you get something out of it. On the back of the book is my Instagram page. I've been told by my kid to tell you to follow me on Instagram. That's all new to me. I am not a technical person. So follow me on Instagram, like my book. If you enjoyed what I was talking about, if you have any other questions right now, then if you have questions about specific kids or specific cases, about my writing process, I'm open to questions. Anybody got any questions? I like to talk. Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, so I agree with the trash bag. In emergency cases, I have used laundry bags. Is that okay?
It's better than a trash bag because there are emergency situations. I'm not saying there's no ideal perfect. When I did work at DHR, a lot of times I would carry little duffel bags that I would have people give me in my car. So I'm definitely also open to trying to talk with like actual DHR and saying, hey, and their workers and say, hey, just keep a couple bags in your car because you never know where you're going to pick up a kid. Pick up a book bag. Little duffel bags. You can put a duffel bag inside of a duffel bag inside of a duffel bag inside of a duffel bag, and you can just keep going. And then when you run out, you can start again. I would always keep like a little cooler. If I had to be on call, I keep a cooler in my car. I keep diapers in my car. I keep formula in my car because you never knew what kind of situation you're going to run into. I encourage foster parents, again, to keep, little bags, the cloth laundry bags from like Walmart or the Dollar Tree, because it's not a trash bag. It's even something that they may want to keep. This is my bag versus, okay, this is a trash bag. This is regardless.
The other thing I have done, and I don't know if it's up to you, in case roll under the bed tote with a plastic lid. I buy a bunch of those. And
Yeah, all of that's appropriate because the things that you're saying are things that you're giving to them. A lot of times with these kids, the biggest loss is ownership of stuff. So when you say this is your case, this is your bag, when you leave, this is going to be with you, it is yours. So even if they come to you in trash bags, they, try to come up with plans. I will do a bag drive anytime for anybody. If you run out, let me know. I always have suitcases at my home. I'll bring you some. So just give them something that is there and allow them to have ownership. It goes back to that, help them try to figure out a way to keep their personal property to themselves, Yes, sir.
So is there, kind of more ignorance and curiosity here, is there a way to be less reactive and proactive with this? We know that there's some kids going to be removed from houses. So on the DHL level, as I understand it, that's the front lines. Full disclosure, I'm a veteran, so I went through the whole military thing. First day one of basic training, you walk in and you get your bag of everything you're going to wear, your full HR briefing. This is how to be a soldier, and you go through a week of that. Now, granted, children are not exactly going into the military, but the part where you're handed, this is your new life, and I'm going to care for you. These people are going to care for you through this process, and kind of have that care package of, this is how we're going to pack your stuff, and then I believe there's the foster closet that would help with that onboarding.
Well, and there's things in place. The issue is consistency. I know, and I can only talk. I haven't been at DHR since 2016, so I don't know if this still exists, but I know when I worked at Jefferson County DHR, they had journey bags, they called them. So they were just little book bags that had just a few belongings in them. So again, on days when I would work cans or when I would have to work on call, I would just make sure I had a few. You don't want to take too many because you don't know what size of the child you're getting, but knowing that those things are available. And then just keeping some stuff. So it's the purpose of the book is to bring realization to what is going on and try to make changes. So that's one of the reasons I'm pushing the book so much, because I want people that work in the system to say, okay, yeah, this is what's going on. We need to change this. So it's not just about talking to foster parents about it. It's talking to DHR. It's talking to social workers. It's talking to other, groups of people that support foster kids. I know Tiffany Haddish, she has a program where she collects bags and sends them out. I know you guys have one here that I thought was cool, where they collect the bags and then they repaint them and they send them out. I was like, that is really cool. So there are people, and there's some acknowledge of what's going on. I think what happens is people have gotten complacent. That's just the way it is. And this is one of the situations where if we want a better outcome for these kids, we have to start off on a better foot. And that's kind of one of the reasons for the book, and that's what I'm advocating for. There not to be such a, it's okay to do this. It's not. We're hurting kids, and we need to make changes. So I definitely agree with what you're saying. My son is in the military. I remember him telling me how they just dumped all this stuff out and said, this is all you get and you're going. So there's definitely a way to do it. As a foster parent, what you can do is make sure if they come with a trash bag, they don't leave with one. And that's one thing that you can do. Yes, ma'am.
So I had a child who came with 6 trash bags, and I had noticed more than half of her stuff didn't even fit. She was just, I wouldn't even say 40, but just attached to her things she wouldn't let go. I gave incentives to let some, but if you donate these, then we can do this for you. I don't know if that was the right thing, because I did take a piece away from her. But I don't know how you feel about that, just trying to get children to let go of some of the things that they don't want to do.
Well, one thing that you can do that I've actually seen a foster parent do, it was cool, is when they would come with things that were too small, they would do things like get them a bear or a toy or something, and they'll say, okay, pick the favorite thing up out of here. We're going to dress this bear in this. You're going to have this. Let them keep a couple of things. Let them explain to you why it's important so that you're not getting rid of maybe that shirt that Nana Funk gave them.
Right.
You know, versus, okay, these are just some Walmart jeans, they're too small, we're gonna get you another pair.
Well, most of the kids I have are teens,
Mhm.
so it's not a bear that you want. I mean, I try to accommodate, it's still there, really still attached. They have, let's say, 7.5 years, and they're really a size 9. And it's just, you know, I talk to them, I don't know if I'm talking to them regularly, but for teens, what do you do for teens?
For teens, give them space,
Okay.
give them time, let it be their call. Just make sure that you give them space, say, okay, you can keep this, but it can't be all over the place.
Right.
So again, like you said, you give them the little trunk, the little trundle, let them pack those things away and say, you know, they are too small, we're gonna get you some things that can fit, but you can keep that. You know, if you ever decide that you wanna donate it, let them know that there are clothing closets for other foster kids coming in that would love to have these things and give them a new life. But again, it comes down to one of those things, I can't control that you got me, I can't control when I go home. The only thing that I can control is this is my stuff and you can't have it. So you have to give them the space and let them make the decision. Which sometimes is probably going to lead to more clutter, but it's going to show them that you respect them as a person. You know, because literally it's a control thing. It's like, this is all I have and you want to take it? No, it's mine. You can't have it. And that's the mentality of, I don't care if they're 5 or 15, that's the mentality. These are my things. I got them from my mama, my daddy, my grandma, my sister, whoever. It's mine. It's mine, mine, mine. You can't have it. Step back, give them the space, let them know when you're ready. If you would like, there are other kids that would love to have these things. They're still in good shape. They can go to somebody that can use them. And that means you get to go shopping. But we'll do that when you're ready versus you pushing it. They say no, step back, give them space. Question? Anyone else? No?
One in the back.
Yes, ma'am.
This is my first meeting. I'm not a foster parent, but it's always been so heavy on my heart and mind to be a foster parent. So I think this is my first step. I'm always concerned about psychological welfare of the child. So is it already built in if being taken away is already traumatic? When they come to me, do they have therapy that they go to every child gets therapy?
It's not built in. Depending on the kid and how they come into care. And everybody, if I say, with the exception of you, does everybody else know what I mean when I say ISP? Yeah. So it has to be written into the ISP. The ISP is a care plan. It's basically like a treatment plan in mental health. Is these are what the kids need. This is who's going to be responsible for getting it done, and this is how we're going to do it. So 9 times out of 10, I know for me, when we have kids come in on shelter cares and I interview those kids, if I feel like therapy is needed off the top, I'm telling the attorney right away, go ahead and get them to start looking at therapy. Go ahead, they're going to need this, they're going to need that. Usually it'll get written into, it's not the very first ISP because it's so quick. After they've had the kid for a minute and they've been able to assess, generally very quickly it becomes a thing. And then I know that within some support groups, like if you think about like Alabama Baptist Children's Home, Saraj Safety Net, they have their own therapist, and that's written into those programs depending on the age of the kid that you're dealing with. So it really just is a hit and miss depending on what they come in for.
Will I know what they've been through? Like when the child brought to me, will I know what happened? Or?
Maybe not. Maybe not, and maybe not ever. Sometimes it depends on the age of the kid. Sometimes it depends on the social worker. Sometimes it depends on the case. The longer you have the kid, the more you'll learn. The more comfortable the kid gets with you, the more they'll share. They may share stuff that's not even in their initial reason for getting picked up. You know, we've had cases where it's been a simple removal for a poor home, and then once we find the kid and get them into the house, we find out we're dealing with sexual abuse, we're dealing with physical abuse, we're dealing with drugs, kids that have lived in multiple places, homeless shelters, sometimes they'll have hoarding issues. So I'm not scared, I don't want to scare you, but I just want you to understand that that's a lot of what our kids, and even from the smallest age. I think the smallest hoarder I had was 4. And the way they found out is like he would go in and he would like eat half of his food and then he'd hide it under the bed. And he was hiding stuff in the vent in his room. Foster parent didn't find out until she got roaches, and it was great. But again, that's not to scare you out, but no, you don't necessarily know from the beginning what's wrong with the kid. It's a learning process for you guys too.
On her point, I'm so sorry.
You're fine.
So
Not through DHR, not for, like, I'm not familiar with Madison County at all, so anything that I would give would only be for Jefferson County. You could probably, honestly, you can find almost anything online, so you can probably just go Google male therapist in Madison County and pull up a list.
Okay, Medicaid, that's kind of a problem.
Yeah.
I have called a few, and they said they don't take Medicaid. I didn't know how, because I'm not familiar with Medicaid, you know, I've been doing it for a minute. Because I've never had to submit anything or whatever, but I know for, I have probably, if you call their office and you tell them you want a male, whatever, doctor or whatever, either rate of dinner. You can specify, does Medicaid do the same thing?
Medicaid does something similar, but you gotta understand, those are the therapists that fill up first. So the first, I said Medicaid does do something similar, and there's usually a number on the back of the Medicaid cards that you can call. So I would start there.
I've never even seen the Medicaid chart. They have it on the paper.
Again, Google's amazing. I would start there. And I'm just saying that because for Madison County, I'm not familiar. I'm sure there are male therapists. It's just going to be a matter of getting in touch with Medicaid, seeing who's going to be covered by Medicaid. If Medicaid does not cover and you have foster children though, and you can get it written into their ISP that the child has to have a male counselor, the state can pay for it, but you have to get it put in the ISP. She can get it.
I think if you go to side, oh, what was
Is that
that?
what you're saying, psychology?
That's what I was about to say.
Okay, you can put in Medicaid and then you can scroll through all the options.
Okay, thank you very much.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that one. Any other questions? No pressure, no more questions? Well, I have honestly enjoyed being here. This has been fun. I'm gonna be nervous Nancy probably every time I do this forever. So I hope you guys got something out of it. I really appreciate you guys letting me come up here today. I'm over here if you want to talk more. I do have books, but again, it's no pressure.